negotiations between the MDC, having been authorized by the Standing Committee at that particular time in the Takaita negotiations. What we did then was to write mutungamiriri wanga vari kuchikwata chakanga chaenda kukoti who are the applicants vachitungamirirwa navamudzuri. And as a member of the Standing Committee, I was assigned to go and negotiate with the other party and come up with a solution. Solution yetu was going to be based on the issue of Kutiyo. We were not happy about the continued wranglings zaitika kuma-courts while the party itself was bleeding. And we agreed. We then proceeded to negotiate, and the talks took about 2.5 months to negotiate. And each and every week we were reporting to our immediate superiors. The other side was reporting to our Mudzuri. We were reporting to our Mwonzora. Then we got to a stage where Mwonzora said, yes, I accept the contents of the agreement that you finally drafted. But, kana musina kundirecognize as president to this agreement and sign. That's what it was. So we went back to our colleagues and said, this is what has come from our principal. But in the meantime, the court judgment, its agenda, it was very clear that, number one, we had to agree on the points of agreement from the court judgment. The first thing that we agreed was, Isisu, as negotiators, we were accepting the fact that the High Court had actually annulled the 2022 Congress, the Movement of Democratic Change, for the following reasons. Number one, the wing Mudzuri was said not to have conducted any Congress proceedings which would lead to an overall Congress that was held Takupi Showground. Secondly, my youth again had not conducted any proceedings as per the constitutional requirement where they would actually finally end up with delegates coming to that particular Congress. Thirdly, the Congress had been called Ichipa notice shorter than what was required by the constitutional provisions. Some reports were indicating that out of a province with 23 constituencies or districts, only 9 districts had turned up for Congress. Therefore, even the younger minority compared to the people who were qualified to actually should have attended as delegates to the Congress. Now, the annulment of the Congress meant automatically whoever was supposed to have been elected in that particular Congress, it was null and void. In other words, the party had no president or any other office holder, including ourselves who were in the Standing Committee. Tangatisina local standard, local standard, it's not local standard, but that's what it meant. Saka isisu agreement that I'm now going to go into details with how did we come up with this agreement. First of all, what stage have we reached, and what sort of people that we expect to actually get on the ground and start actioning what we think is in the best interest of the party. In Itarabana, I'm one of the first 10 people, the pioneer founders of the MDC. Unfortunately, 9 of my colleagues have passed on. Kwasaramai Holland, who has rejoined ZANU-PF. In 1 out of 10 achieved MDC Sangirai. Actually, I was the first Deputy Secretary General of this party in 2000, when I had to step aside in order for the agreement to allow from at the building to participate fully. I could have won that Congress if I wanted, but I stood down in order to promote it to local homes. Because the titles are 26. I spent 15 years in Parliament, 5 of which I was a Deputy Minister of Mines. So when I talk about being attached to the MDC, it's not a job. ndini naWashington nimwe takatenga this building for $27 million nemari yakanga yabva kuparliament, so that you know who is talking to you. Handizi ukungonzi yatina pangana. Also was vested in this building, and it was vested in the leadership yatanga Tangira. But what happened after Tangira was Takachona? I remember way back I sat in a disciplinary committee akadzinga MP woku Mfakosi. But akataura akati chinhu chenyu ichi cheNDC ichi mukachiregera chikaenda kumabourgeoisie, the workers' cause will be lost. We signed it already. In the disciplinary committee and we dismissed him. But today, in hindsight, I'm realizing with what he said was correct. After all, I spent 15 years as Secretary General of the PTC Workers Union, the first parastatal union to actually go on strike in this country. In this Takabudza ZCTU, the executive member of the ZCTU, could let you know the stay away. Because my union was the first one to actually stay away in this country. Teachers that I must stay away to ZCTU, we then push for a workers' party. So we don't lose sight of the fact that this party is a workers' party. And the town of bourgeoisie, I want a program. 3 years in office, Apana Chukufamba. How can you do that? Let alone Mashandi, and yet we had an income when we were still getting money from parliament. Put aside my reserves in the interim. Takachiona kuti chokutanga my elections mazera achaona kana one vote, even your polling agent is not voting for you. What kind of leadership is that if you lose confidence of even your polling agent not voting for your candidate? It's something that one is to ask himself. And then I've said, look, why don't you just step down and dissolve the structures that the change of Congress. Thank goodness Kochi akazotipa ruling yekuti tinofana kuti tiende kuCongress. Saka panapa pastage yatasvika paagreement yatikutaura takawirirana. I have to say the agreement does not close out anyone. Agenda yedu isusu tichienda kutaura navaMudzuri. We said anyone an interest or any group in an interest to revive the party, they are welcome to what? To join us in negotiations to revamp the party. We did not shut out anyone. As you heard my speech as we go on, right after last night, some of our colleagues are in the province of the United States, trying to reach an agreement with how do we get the others to come in so that it does not become a two-host race, reinstitute authority yemsangano. Saka patiri ezvinezvi ndichakuverengerai letter. The agreement itself are going to detail ndichikoshotena so that you understand generally tozopaima copies. Journalists are muno. Topaima copies of what we agreed upon. Chokutanga nhasi is to introduce what we are going to refer to as the steering committee. The steering committee is anyone on corner 6 from either of the two parties. Vakadaro mazita avo tikaburisa, this is the nucleus yatinayo yechi yevanhu 6 yawa. However, it's going to be expanded to include all other provinces. In other words, our agreement is all inclusive. That's the approach that we are using. So I don't know if there are any persons who want to correct ipapo. Tell us what is meaning of all inclusive. Itaura tese pamwe chete kana titaura pashona tizezura ndizoti vanotaura sei nepachanyika. Congress, they will actually be responsible for publicizing that agreement at various launched meetings that are going to be held countrywide. What we are saying and envisaging is a situation equity. We will be down from Zaraban, border in Mozambique. We will be down in Bite Bridge. Tinosvika kuBinga. We will be down in Plumtree. to make sure that we are reviving the old NDC that we knew. And to make sure that we leave nobody behind. Tinenge tichienda tese. Saka basa re-steering committee ndiro rozoita zvake to ensure that there is no discrimination. Kuti vanhu vauya kumusangano dziwe ibva iwe mira uko vanhu vane mhosva dzavo tinenge tichivaona. When I read the agreement, you find that pane maareas atakaita specific to. Maissues ekuti kana wakanofoma yako party wati wabva muMDC kunze kwokutanga watodenounce the formation of that party, we cannot welcome you back into our structures. Unongoenda kane party yako yakafoma iyo. But kana wangova nojoina usina kufoma, you are welcome to come back, because we know the disgruntlement yanga party yaita kuti vanhu vaite sei vasiyire basa panzira. So vakanegotiate agreement ndevanezenge vachiita basa rekusupervisa, and we are referring to them sezvataita paconstitution writing paper as jomic members. The jomic members include myself and 3 members from Divira Mudzuri. In some of my colleagues, they are not here at the moment, but in the Nawachinake, no matter Munyai. They were the other members that negotiated on the other side with the other group. Edward Kakora, who was my vice chair. Kozoya, John Nika was also his colleague. Na Modern Utsata. TD6 could arm this negotiate agreement and Chaperengera. But suddenly the Utarisi agreement they retain Chita. There shall be in this arrangement a situation in which my supervisors, we act as supervisors, as a supervisory body of the National Caretaker Council. I will explain to you continuing the agreement with Caretaker Council on the EP. We shall then be responsible for reading out the agreement on the launch day in each province, explain the details of the agreement to the members at the launch day. Ensure that free and fair nominations and elections and voting for interim structures is conducted, ensuring gender balance. Because my interim structures are going to be responsible for the reconstructing of the party to Viraba branch. That is Sinama branch. Tayati now. Tayati my wards. Hakusisina. Chibaba Tayati my districts. That is Sina. When Wati I speak to Betam Sanga. Just a titular thing that they have, and it's not actually conducting any type of meetings as per the Constitution. Therefore, the Constitution is very clear. You can over a certain period. You are null and void as a structure of the party, because I'm not a minister. So, as Jomic, we shall ensure that there is strict observance of the party Constitution in the process of setting up the structures by selecting an independent body to conduct the elections. An independent body. We know in the past we have used the ZCTU to conduct our elections. Yes, up to last night, Tangatine stampede from my phone. It's around 6. The door was open. Saka I see the door is still open, but we are cut through the proper procedure. I see to pass. And it's up to you to then comment and say, maybe a man Kirakora, Makasia Zakati Zakati. Can a total run on this way. The Jomic is also going to carry out any other process necessary to ensure the smooth running and implementation of the agreement. And Jomic is going to be answerable to the party membership. And we shall refer any unresolved issues to the party arbiter. We've been consulting him in our negotiations. We've been consulting him whenever there were cases that went to court. He says a negotiating team to Dakungo, and they used to give us advice. And that chatikutarisira isusu sejomic kutarisira kuti National Consultative Council yandichakutsanangurai manje yaita sei yaita achieve success in restructuring the party so that we can go to a free and fair Congress within the period that we have assigned ourselves to consolidate issues. Now what I will do is, I will now go to the agreement, look at summary agreement at night, in the zip, in Japan copies as I said, I indicated, Japan copies, my journalists, Munga community, a copy of the following. This is how we approach it. Chokutanga, Tatumirana agenda. We agreed on the agenda. So agenda number 1 was to ensure we to accept where we were wrong. And this is how we put it. I'll just read the introductory paragraph. As bona fide members of the MDC party, we have decided to come together as one family and iron out those issues that triggered friction amongst members of the MDC party. Taking cognizance of the fact that continued court wranglings were not in the best interests of the health of the MDC party. Realizing that the party had suffered membership hemorrhage and loss of enthusiasm in party programs by party members, it is therefore apparent that a negotiated settlement could be the best solution in order to meet the membership aspirations for a healthy and vibrant MDC party. Those are recognize that the party is wrong, and we accepted. Utungamiriri wedu haramba kushanda. Vamwe vedu vangaenda kukoti vachiraise objections ndobatawirirana. Saka ndizvo zvinotevera ndezvatakawirirana. Number 1, we agreed to adopt a general amnesty kuregererana. Kuti takatanyanya kudzingana. Watitadzira waita zvakati out. So we agreed on a general amnesty. Then we agreed kuti pajudgment yakabuda yechi chataiwirirana kuti takawirirana ndizvanga zvakanganisa. Chokutanga, the nullification of the 2022 Congress, we accepted it as a factor that we had to accept as both parties. Nokuti vamwe vedu vanga vakwanisa kudemonstrata kukoti pakabuda zviya zvokuti madzimai anoita Congress yaidita to this General Congress, mayouth anoita Congress yaidita to this Congress ya 2022, and at the same time Papa situation under representation of the structures that were there. No, what we need now is the democratization of the party structures. The parties agreed to democratize the process of coming up with party structures by revamping from branches to national level. Province, Congress. My party structures are happy. We agreed that we are going to set up the following structures. It is human to be selfish. Ataigona kutora vanhu vatiri kuona kuti ndo vakanya musangano tovati titungamira process yekuita rebuild musangano. Ukaona build akaenda nenyundo pabuilding ungamuregaira achisvika pawall yebuilding kana toda build akabata mupeni. So takaona kuti mabuild aya anga asina mupeni vanga vane nyundo. So we agreed to the following: to set up a National Caretaker Council, in other words, in short, NCC, in the interim, to be formed within 14 days. Within 14 days, in the various provinces, we expect each province to elect Mudzuri, Murume, Nemuyuth, to temporarily, as an interim committee, join other provinces, 36. They will form the National Consultative Council that is going to oversee the establishment of structures in the various areas under the supervision of Jomi Ganamutaura. Right. Right. Joint Monitoring Implementation Committee, JOMIC, in the state watch looked at South One. It's what Takataura and this was as the numbers of Takataris. Putting the ships at Tributaris. Top by Papa, a national structure, Pania Provincial Management Council. Interim Zakat, ISP managed, to be formed within 4 weeks, consisting of members from 1999 to 2008, down an experience. Vaimborana musangano uchitsukira zvokuti vatsvangirai vangu kuti vakatichinja waona rukisheni rwese rwabuda vanhu vaungana zvinezvi kana ukatichinja kwatine mbiri kuenda zvinezvi kumarufu even kuno munhu asina kuziva kuti afa ndiani tosvikotanga kuitisana nharo kuti ndiani ndichamisera anofanira kunge achitaura parufu apo kana kuti ndiningi anofanira kunge achitaura parufu apo. I'm not being derogatory. This is what has been happening. What has it happened to kutsvage pano kuinge chikuru kuno munhu usingazivi kuti ndiani. That's not what the party was formed for. We believe in solidarity, yes, but not solidarity yokuenda kurufu kwausingazivikani ndiwani. Handizvo tinoda marufu emamembers edu. Tiri kuti isisu tadaro manje tinozofoma tabva paprovince ka totifoma madistrict caretaker committees GCC. Ndobva taona kuti we have 2,904 districts, I mean wards. Ndobva taona kuti the structure yedu ikwanitimase kuti manager. Let's stop at district level and say the district is now going to be responsible for the management of restructuring of the branches. So ndipo takawirirana ipapo. The formation process itself. Jomic, Yabanz Wangari, my negotiators were Makuchita said, Makueda Jomic. The National Consultative Council and then monitor my provincial caretaker councils. My provincial caretaker councils don't monitor district. District don't make a branch. Branch go the best line Panatangiram Sangano. Can a person a branch? It's like a tall tree that has no roots. Hakuna msangano no sababu. But the current situation at now, we have allowed the branches to die. And tisingamboafanda kuti avanoita meetings. No membership records. Saka muri kuona we are now very famous in appearing in ZANU-PF headquarters and saying, ndiri spending committee but I was the first person to be assigned in Auchangira to go and negotiate in ZANU-PF in 2001. And to let you know into one secret, this is wapiwe diesel, wapiwe tractor, wapiwe fertilizer, wapiwe mbeu. It came as a suggestion from us, Frederick Shaw was on the other side. But the first meeting, I got to in the secretary in another law and order, and I got 2 days earlier. Secretary was a CIO guy, and I said, hold on a minute. Bishop, which I was going to get IOS. Koyano go to secretary was a moon with CIO. In the way and a Gandhi Zimbo Yagazo teacher was on my husband, Yaga secretary. God bless him. You got to no, I can't negotiate in the ZANU-PF on the basis of what you are not CIO, no secretary. You don't know ZANU-PF headquarters in the so Bishop Waya chair meeting here and what to know. Come on. Is it true to do cities can say, for Inge, in ZANU-PF named DC? There were now Vunzanikat, Nai Frederick Shaw, the younger administrator of ZANU-PF time. You are 2 man and 2 president Mugabe. President Mugabe Upi. President Jawe can get in that 2 man president will DC. So I'm expecting you to come from ZANU-PF president, not president when you go that you have to schedule. To find equal instead. You are not Frederick Shaw Bishop. Mudzuri, which man get out and didn't teach politics. I think he could be right. Because Batakas was not after Lancaster of London. They are responsible in the London district. But in India, I don't know DC in Trafalgar Square. Because you know, Zaruta has an upshot. Frederick Shaw, you have an teacher and teacher Sabe. And that's how we are 2 weeks ago. I have chat over this song. I have a Basco. You got Magadi teacher, don't teacher, and you got a Nation, night teacher. Maku Pimanch. You are the teacher Sabe. Then there's a fan of Frederick Shaw. I can't teach Sabe, but I went all the way up to university. Saka I can't teach here, and just out of what I'm swinging in the cartoon and got to graduate at university and I'm big. So I have nothing to learn from Frederick Shaw, but let's discuss the issues here that would have to tell. And the Patara without to call Marapa and Malas in the Pisa Sore. Because the whole country was black. I got a piece of kupisira uswa kuti wari wetutu ndezvaitaura mugeni izvozvo kuti vanhu munorumira pese pese panenge pange hohwa. Ndakazomubvunza rimwe kuti nhai mugeni asi uri muprofita zvikanzi wainwanibvunza ndika zvimwe zvinhu zvaunotaura zvipo zvaitika nemutauro waunenge waita ndara aiprofitawo futi zvimwe zvinhu zvacho. Now by the end of the day isu tiri kuona kuti tidzokere kuchinhanho ichocho, we have to rely on our branches. Kana tisina kuita faith in our branches, pasina activism iri at grassroots level, hapana kwatinoenda semusangano. And musangano wedu pawauya zvezvo wakangana kuti kune vashandi. They forget kuti the motherboard was the ZCTU. While takazi takabatana nevamwe but vashandi ndavanga vari pamberi. Tobva ipapo takaisa matimelines ekutaura kuti mabranches anofanira kufungwa by such and such a date, toenda pamawards, tasvika paprovince, tikangosvika paprovince takuenda kucongress. However, in qualifying for leadership, tiri kuti panofanira kuenda security clearance. Ndofunga manzwa secretary for defense vachitaura pana. We need security clearance. Ndesaka tisina kupai mazita nhasi. Nokuti vamwe tinogona kunge takanominata, vanogona kunge vakambodziparamura. Hatibvume kuti vange vari muleadership vangazotinetsa pamberi. Vamwe vacho tinoziva hedu by general knowledge vakambobasa mumwe kubva vauya kuno wabva watopiwa chinzvimbo chiri pamusoro currently. And iyezvezvo takuti we want to make sure kuti security clearance is there. Takadevelopa zvakare template to cover security clearance with clauses and qualifications and disqualification kana usinga qualify kuti unge mutungamiriri. Takaisa futi tine draft yatinayo kutaura izvozvo. Now this is the agreement that we have, and having signed, takasign isu wacho takanegotiate. One of the principals signed and the other principal said no. Mimi kunyange koti yakati handisiri president, ndirecognize as president, kana musana recognize and sign a document haiwa basi. Kuisisu ndine ndakamudza kuti ibheta munhu wakakudaro. Kana uchinge warambirwa nekoti unozouya kushandisa masoro kuti ndinofanira kunge ndiripo. Now, commitment yeJomic. Some of you may ask, are you guys committed to what you are doing? Inini, as chairman weJomic, sat down with my colleagues and we agreed to the following: that as Jomic members, entrusted with the shepherding of the implementation of the court judgment and guiding the renewal of our movement, we remain steadfast in our commitment to a principled, lawful, and people-centered process. The process that must be lawful, that's number one. Two, it must be principled, and that it must be people-centered. Over the past few days, we have been engaging various stakeholders in the hope of presenting a united front to the nation. Our objective has always been clear: to rebuild the party's foundations, restore credibility, and ensure that the people's mandate is respected in both spirit and in practice. While as Jomic, we had anticipated addressing the nation jointly today, unforeseen logistical and administrative constraints among some stakeholders have affected the original plan. We acknowledge these circumstances without casting blame or fueling speculation. Kana vakasati varegister kuti aiwa uyai tatinyazogara pasi titaurirana tione kuti pane here patakachinja marules ebhora zvamunofunga kuti inini togona kuzotamba bheta tikachinja pakati nepakati. We are open to doing that. Moments of transition naturally bring differing levels of readiness, but what matters most is the direction we are all ultimately moving towards. But it's important. Yes, we have a common goal of making sure that this party is revamped through the party structures to take the constitution yetu sezvairi. So takadari papa turikuti tinokwanisa kutaura. We haven't kicked anybody out. As Jomic members and applicants to the judgment, our position remains consistent and unwavering. We will continue championing the implementation of the court-mandated processes and advancing a clean, transparent, and democratic renewal of the movement. Our focus, and it will always remain, on the people that we serve, not on buildings, not on positions or personal interests. The task before us is bigger than any individual. It requires patience, statesmanship, and the courage to proceed even when progress feels uneven. To this end, we wish to assure our supporters that we are exploring pathways to continue engaging the public and stakeholders, both within and outside the traditional confines of Harvest House, in ways that preserve the dignity of the movement and keep the people's agenda at the center of the operations of this organization, of this party. We remain guided by our collective responsibility as Chomiki. And also to rebuild trust. Trust. Unfortunately, we have been exposed sometimes. Step down what I want. If you are not fit as a leader, to behave as a leader, we need to build trust, restore panechi pharmacy yange pakona pamsoro pele bakoti ndipataka kugara ipapo but the inconvenience was so serious. My youth vanoita maproblems vari wanezani nemadzimai chikuti vakwane ipapo kuzvainetsa ndepatakazoti yauya 27 million iya ndikunegotiata the owners of this building. Tanegotiata now vatasettle up for 27 million. I was the deputy secretary general, was secretary general. We then agreed to buy this building. We bought it for 27 million. Dollar ranga equivalent to dollar that time, if you remember. So by the end of the day, we then decided to MDC having an office in the city center. It's not very comfortable. What do? We then appointed a board of trustees to look after the building. Takasa mufundisi we church. Tikatora, I think mufundisi church was doctor of medicine. Dr. Awajani is now in Canada. And then the Batatora Wamakone. Wamama was the building there, Makone. 27 million Yanangana, and I'm that's not going to this was a married Takashandisa. I did not go married now, Makone. So I think we had 4 or 5 key members on the board of trustees, so that Zambia would not quickly identify with the local MTC. By the time I was younger, I was on the MTC and DC. Tanatato revised even in Magraza, not for us to Katatongo and was Panic. we had to actually takaona donor akatisponsor ipapo masimba takazoisa every step kuti kuira kuenda mudenga maya. It was donor funded nevamwe vaitifarirawo, and we put up those, although izvezvo hazikushanda as they should be. We had other things that we installed. So the building is owned by membership of the party, and it is controlled by, we have now replaced those trustees. The process of replace a trustee is ongoing, because you have to be assured that a trustee is somebody whom you can trust with you.